the other announcement we had, which is Wyc Grousbeck selling his share of the team. And the way this got reported initially was like the Celtics, their whole ownership group is for sale. It's actually just the Wyc part and probably the stake that his dad had as well. When Wyc Grousbeck bought the team in 2003, he put together a group, and the biggest money person in that group was his dad, Irv Grousbeck, who was just a famous business guy. And then he had Jim Pilato was in the group. Steve Pagluca was a big shareholder in the group. He had some other people as well. And because the Grousbecks had the most money, Wyc was the governor of the team. That means he is the steering wheel. He's in charge ultimately. He's the face of the team. He represents them in the owners' meetings. And I got the feeling, not just from him, just little hints dropped here and there the last couple of years, but you hear this from the other teams too. A lot of these guys are business dudes who fundamentally they're wired to make an investment, and when you 10 times it or 15 times it or 20 times it, it's time to sell the investment, no matter how attached you are to it. That's just how they're wired. And I think once the valuations started to shoot up, especially with Ishbia was the catalyst a year and a half ago when he paid for Sarver's share of the Suns, what he paid, what the team was valued at. That caught everyone's attention because they were like, this is nuts. If you go back to 2010, even the stuff I was writing for ESPN and eventually Grantland at the time during the lockout, there was real fear that the franchise values had cratered. You're talking about the Sixers, the Warriors, the Hornets, some of these teams, the Grizzlies, some of these teams got stolen for, less than $300 million. The Hornets, they basically gave it to Jordan. The Warriors was one of the best deals ever. I said that at the time. And everybody was worried that the prices of these teams were going to level off and maybe go down because they couldn't figure out the CBA with the players. They couldn't figure out where the next media money stuff was coming from. Well, now that's obviously flipped. And now we're hitting the second point that reminds me a little of 2010, where I think some of the people that own these teams are going, not only is the team never going to be more valuable than this, the amount of people eligible to buy my team is dwindling by the day. I talked to somebody in the rich guy circles this week, and I was like, how many people have the ability to just cut a check for a team at this point? If the check's $4 billion, $5 billion, even if it's 40, 50%, you're still cutting a check for like $2 billion, $2.5 billion. I was like, how many people are out there that could just do that? And the guy said, not many. And I know all of them. And that's what you're dealing with. So I think for Wyc, he's looking at it. He's probably 22-fold the value of his team. I think the Celtics are worth $5 billion. They don't own their own arena, but if the Suns are worth $4 billion, there's an extra $1 billion just for the Celtics, one of the most iconic franchises in any sport, beloved in Boston, sell out every year. It's a great team. If you take over this team, you're sitting courtside and you're going to be in the playoffs every year. Like there's real intrinsic value to this. That's at least $5 billion. And then you figure if two people are going at each other, maybe it gets to $6 billion. My guess would be somewhere between 5, 7, and 6 is the value of this team. And if you're buying the Grousbeck shares, maybe that's a $2 million check to be the majority governor. I don't know what the exact numbers are. And he's probably looking at it like it's never going to get better than this. I won my 18th title for the franchise. Wyc's second, but the 18th for the franchise. That tax, all the salary stuff I mentioned is coming. Tatum Brown, who knows? Is somebody going to have to break them up 2-3 years from now? He doesn't want that on him. He's leaving and he's just remembered as this awesome owner. He probably looks at what happened with the Red Sox. John Henry brings the Red Sox and Tom Werner bring the Red Sox a title. They win 4 World Series. And then now nobody in Boston can stand John Henry because he's ruined the Red Sox over the last 4 or 5 years with some of the decisions they've made. So that's how fast they can flip. Bob Kraft, not as bad as the John Henry thing, but he went from everybody loved the dude to over the course of one winter, thanks to the Apple doc and how Belichick was treated. And now people are like, Kraft, kind of a bummer. This guy couldn't have paid for a drink anywhere in Boston for 20 years. And now people are looking at him a little side-eyed. So I'm sure Wyc saw some of that too. But the big thing for me, you could talk about, there's all these people that are coming in. There's could be a casino. Casino could build downtown Boston. Some just super rich person, mystery person who's always wanted to own the Celtics. You could give me a bunch of scenarios, but I think the next owner of the team is already an owner of the team. I think it's Steve Pagliuca, who was really the number 2 owner on this team the whole time, and was somebody that, you'd see him on the podium. He didn't have the steering wheel, and you always knew he wanted it. And then he ran for political office in Massachusetts, spent a ton of money on his campaign, didn't get it. He went for the Nets a few years ago and had it. He had the Nets. And I think there was, I forget what happened at the 11th hour, but something happened. He froze or he backed off for a split second, and Joe Tsai stepped in and took it. And he probably should have taken the Nets, because that's, when you consider Barclays and all the other stuff in there, that was probably a good deal, way more than what he was going to pay. So I think he wants it. He also has a stake. And usually when you have these ownership groups, if you're buying in, the other partners have the right to be like, well, then it's called a put. Then you have to buy me out too. And that's what happened in Phoenix. And that's why the Ishbia thing, it's a bigger check than just writing the check for the majority guy. So this is all easier in 100 different ways if Pags just takes it over. And he had a statement later in the day yesterday saying how he couldn't wait to be a bidder for the team, be a proud member of the bidding process, whatever he said. I think it's going to be Pags. I think he's ready for it. And whatever happens here with the ownership process, it's a really interesting one, because these guys have worked side by side now for 21 years. And the easy thing would be for Wyc to just sell his share to Pags and let him take over. But he's going to do this his whole process and get the most amount of money he's going to get. I'd be shocked if Pags didn't get the team. And if he gets the team, that's good for Boston fans, because what they've had with Wyc Grousbeck and this whole ownership group the last 20 years has been, you can't ask for more. I wouldn't say it's an A+, but it's been an A, especially how they were able to ride out that KG era. They got a title out of it, and then it peters out, the rebuild, and then immediately good again. And they've spent money every time they've had to. And when you think about some of the owners the Celtics have had in the past, Paul Gaston's, there was just an endless slew of guys that owned the team in the 70s and 80s. They were like the drunk stepdads that would come in for a couple years, own the team. Red Auerbach would try to hold them off, then we'd go to the next guy. They've been great owners. So I think I was talking to my dad about it yesterday, and he was like, man, my dad was like really bummed out. He was like, why now? Why? We just won the title. The Tatum extension, the White extension, why would they do this now? And I think it's because this is the right time to sell, and you get the process going, you see what's going to happen. My guess is Wyc's going to be involved for at least a couple years. But as we saw with Mark Cuban in Dallas, they say that, but the moment that team transfers hands, they start nudging the other dude out. You didn't see Cuban on the podium in the Western Conference playoffs, right? This is a guy who's, I'm in charge of basketball. It was like he got just gently nudged to the side. And that's what happens when you don't own the team anymore. And that's why these guys are so scared to sell it sometimes, because once you sell it, it's never the same. You're not the guy. You're not sitting there and you picked your seat on courtside. You're the first call from everybody. Like, that's it. And whether you're the owner of a team, whether you're a commissioner, whether you're Lorne Michaels running Saturday Night Live, whoever you are, once you give up that job, it's never the same. So I don't think he took the decision lightly, but he did it. And he was an awesome, awesome sports owner. So we'll see how it goes.